It was supposed to be an easy Friday night. 17-year-old Grace Harlan had babysat for the Whitmore family twice before, once over the summer, once the month before when their youngest had a stomach bug. The house was big, newly renovated, with too many rooms for a family of 4. It sat in a quiet Denver suburb where the streets had names like Hawthorne Circle and Maple Grove Lane, where porch lights glowed soft yellow and the air always smelled like someone just mowed their lawn. Grace didn't love babysitting, but she liked the Whitmores. And the parents paid well, cash, in a white envelope, always handed to her at the end of the night with a grateful smile. The night started normally. At 6:15 p.m., Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore left for a fundraiser gala downtown. The kids, Tyler age 5 and Maddie age 7, were in their pajamas by 7, watching a Pixar movie. By 8, they were asleep in their separate rooms upstairs. Grace texted Mrs. Whitmore a photo of the kids tucked in bed, just as she always did, then made herself a cup of hot chocolate and curled up on the leather couch downstairs. That was when the phone rang. Grace stared at the screen. It was the landline. The Whitmores had told her no one would be calling on that phone. Their cell numbers were in her contacts. The screen simply read, "Incoming call, blocked." She let it ring. It stopped after the 5th ring. Silence. Weird, she thought, but not that weird. Maybe a telemarketer. Maybe a glitch. The second call came 10 minutes later. Same number. Blocked. She answered this time. "Hello." Nothing. Not even breathing. Just quiet. Grace waited. "Hello," she repeated, her voice slightly firmer. Then, click. The call ended. The house felt colder now, like the heat had shut off, though the thermostat read 72. She turned off the TV and stood up, glancing around the living room. The large windows reflected her shape in the dark. She checked the front door. Locked. Back door. Locked too. Another 10 minutes passed. Her phone buzzed. A new text, but not from Mrs. Whitmore. Unknown number. No name. The message said, "Did you lock the upstairs window?" Grace froze. She read it again. Her pulse thudded in her ears. "Did you lock the upstairs window?" She didn't respond. Instead, she grabbed her phone, tiptoed to the base of the stairs, and stared up into the hallway. From here, the house looked like a maze. Long walls, closed doors, too many shadows. Another text arrived. "You missed one." She nearly dropped her phone. Grace's first instinct was to check the kids. She rushed up the stairs, heart hammering, and crept into Maddie's room. The little girl was sound asleep, her chest rising and falling gently under a princess blanket. Tyler was the same, curled up with a stuffed dinosaur, breathing softly. Then she checked the windows. Locked. Both rooms. Locked. She moved down the hall. Bathroom. Locked. The guest room. Locked. Last was the attic door. It was in the hallway ceiling with one of those pull-down ladders, a dusty string hanging just out of reach. She'd never been up there, never had a reason to. But now her eyes were locked on it. She stood perfectly still and listened. Nothing. Not even creaking wood or rustling insulation. Just the distant hum of the fridge downstairs. She went back to the living room and called Mrs. Whitmore. No answer. Then she called her dad. He picked up immediately. "Hey, everything okay?" She tried to sound calm. "Yeah, I think so. Just a little creeped out. I got a couple calls and weird texts." "From who?" "Blocked number. They said something about a window being unlocked upstairs, but I checked. They're all locked." Her dad went quiet. "You want me to come over?" No, I'm fine. It's just probably a prank. Maybe a scam. If you change your mind, I'm 10 minutes away." She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Thanks, Dad." After she hung up, she checked the windows again. Every lock, every latch, everything was shut. She returned to the couch and sat, phone in hand, waiting. The next message came at 9:27 p.m. "Don't go back upstairs." Grace felt the blood drain from her face. She called 911. Her voice trembled as she explained the situation. She told them about the texts, the calls, the house, the attic. The dispatcher kept her on the line. "We're tracing the phone number now. Stay on the call with me, Grace. Officers are en route." She nodded, tears prickling her eyes. Then the dispatcher's voice changed. "Grace, we traced the call. Okay, she whispered. Where's it coming from? A pause. Then, it's coming from inside the house. Grace, the dispatcher said slowly, you need to stay calm. Police are almost there. Lock yourself in a room if you can. Do not go upstairs. Grace could barely breathe. She was clutching her phone with both hands, staring up at the dark staircase. Her body wouldn't move. She was frozen, unable to think clearly, caught between logic and terror. Inside the house, that phrase looped in her mind like a broken recording. But the kids, she said, her voice shaking. They're upstairs. What if he's near them? Officers are 2 minutes away. Do not go back upstairs. Stay where you are, and stay quiet. But something deep inside her, something maternal and primal, told her she couldn't just sit and wait. Those kids were asleep, vulnerable. She couldn't live with herself if something happened to them. So she moved, silently. Phone still connected. She tiptoed up the staircase, careful to skip the creaky steps she remembered from earlier. The hallway was a tunnel of darkness. She kept her body low, crouching as she reached Maddie's room. She eased the door open. Maddie was still asleep, untouched. Then Tyler's room. The same. No sign of anyone. No sound. Nothing wrong. Except that horrible, creeping sense of being watched. Grace backed into the hallway and whispered into the phone, I'm upstairs. The kids are okay. Grace, the dispatcher said, almost scolding, I told you to stay downstairs. The call came from the attic. He may still be in there. Her eyes darted up to the ceiling, where the attic hatch loomed above her like a square black mouth. She hadn't heard anything from it. No sounds, no footsteps, no breathing. But then she saw it. The string. The pull string for the attic door. It was swaying. Just slightly. As if someone had touched it. As if it had just moved. Then came the faintest sound. Creak. Not from below. From above. Grace clamped her hand over her mouth. The dispatcher was still speaking, but she barely heard her. Then headlights flashed through the window. Red and blue. Sirens. Relief surged in Grace's chest so fast it made her dizzy. She raced down the stairs and flung open the front door as 2 officers, one male, one female, jogged toward her. The attic, she whispered. He's in the attic. The officers exchanged a glance. Guns drawn, they entered the house and motioned for her to stay back. What followed was slow, methodical, and tense. The male officer pulled the attic cord. The wooden ladder creaked down. He climbed up first. The sound of boots on wood. A flashlight beam sweeping the dark. Silence. Then a shout. Clear. The officer came back down, pale and shaken. There's more up there than you think, he muttered. What they found in the attic horrified everyone. Behind the insulation, tucked between beams, there was a makeshift sleeping area, an old sleeping bag, some crumpled clothes, food wrappers, empty bottles. Someone had been living up there, not for hours, for days, maybe even longer. Worse still, there were signs of obsession. Notebooks filled with messy handwriting. Drawings. Polaroids taken through the ceiling vents and gaps in the wall. Photos of Grace, of the Whitmore children, of the parents. Photos clearly taken while the family was home. In one of them, Grace was sleeping on the couch. The timestamp matched the date she last babysat. This wasn't new. It had been going on. He's been watching them for weeks, the female officer whispered, holding one of the photos with latex gloves. Maybe longer. Grace felt like throwing up. The attic door had been right above the children's bedrooms. Every creak they'd heard at night. Every bump in the ceiling. Every strange chill. It all made sense now. He had been there, right above them, breathing, crawling, listening. And somehow, no one ever knew. The police swept the entire house but didn't find the intruder. They searched the neighborhood, checked nearby yards. They questioned neighbors, set up surveillance. But the man was gone. All they had were his belongings, his nest, and the sickening proof that he had lived like a ghost among them. When Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore got home, they broke down. Maddie and Tyler were still asleep, but the moment the officers mentioned attic photos, Mrs. Whitmore started shaking uncontrollably. Grace didn't go home that night. Her father picked her up, hugged her longer than he ever had, and promised she'd never have to babysit again. But that night, alone in her own room, Grace couldn't sleep. Every sound in the walls felt louder. Every shadow in the ceiling looked like a trapdoor. 3 weeks later, they caught him. Not in Denver. In Seattle. A young couple had noticed things going missing in their kitchen. Crumbs. Dirty footprints on their hardwood floor. At first, they thought it was a raccoon. Then they installed a motion-triggered camera. The footage showed a man emerging from their ceiling vent. Emaciated, wild-eyed, dressed in what looked like layers of stolen clothing. He crawled across the floor, rummaged through their fridge, then disappeared back into the vent like a rat. Police found him the next day, hiding inside the attic's insulation. Same setup, same photos. It was the same man. He had done it before. Boston, Denver, now Seattle. He picked large houses, families with children, houses with attics and vents and crawlspaces. He'd live in the ceiling for days, sometimes weeks, memorizing their routines. Watching them, breathing above them as they slept. Sometimes he moved things just slightly to see if they noticed. Sometimes he whispered through the vents at night, just to hear them stir. He said it made him feel powerful. They called him the Attic Man in the news. But Grace would always remember him by something else. That voice, that first phone call, that breathless silence on the line, and the single, quiet word he finally whispered when the police traced the call. Not her name, not a threat, just one word, one soft, chilling word she would never forget. Hello.